Rich Dads Who Took My Money: Why Slow Investors Lose and Fast Money Wins, written by Robert T. Kiyosaki. You've done the right thing. You've worked hard and invested your earnings in a mutual fund, so you'll be all set for retirement. But no matter how much you've saved over the years, there's a constant worry. What if it's not enough? What if the stock market crashes just as you're approaching old age? What if you have to face an expensive illness? What then? If questions like these keep you up at night, these lessons are for you. Here you'll learn that the traditional advice to save and invest for the long term is wrong. To secure your financial future, you need to use a combination of assets to generate money fast, all while keeping it out of the hands of financial advisors and stock market sharks. Be warned, mastering this strategy isn't easy, but learning to generate lifelong cash flow is an investment that will truly pay off. Number 1. To avoid spending your old age in poverty, you need to act now. Whenever the author gives a talk about personal finance, someone in the audience is bound to ask him, "Why does money matter anyway? Isn't happiness more important?" In response, he smiles calmly and demonstrates why this attitude is so harmful. He'll begin with some alarming evidence. A survey for USA Today found that the number one fear for Americans is running out of money in old age. More than crime, nuclear war, or anything else, their greatest worry is living a long life with no money. After letting this sink in, the author tells his audience that 1 in 3 Americans over the age of 65 has no retirement plan at all. In other words, their greatest fear will likely come true. The key message here is, to avoid spending your old age in poverty, you need to act now. Many people want to put off their money worries until they're older, but we only have a limited time to get our finances in order. Without a decent pension, many of us will have to keep working long into old age. And with so many living expenses to consider, things like college debt, mortgage payments, car payments, taxes, and care for our elderly parents, retiring might not be an option at all. Sure, working into old age might be good for your physical and mental health, but working forever because you have to is a very different matter. The painful truth is that our money-earning lives are divided up into 4 quarters, just like a game of American football. The first quarter stretches roughly from the age of 25 to 35, the second from 35 to 45, the third from 45 to 55, and the last from 55 to the time we're expected to retire. If we can't afford to retire at that point, we go into overtime. Then, when we're too old to work but have no money left, we're out of time. Game over. Nobody wants to reach those final 2 stages without having their finances in order. So, at some point in those 4 quarters, we should work toward financial independence. But what exactly should we do? The standard advice is save, invest in mutual funds, and hold these for the long term. However, the author argues this isn't the way to reach financial independence. It's too slow and far too unreliable. In the following lessons, we'll explore what you can do instead. Number 2, the best way to become rich is through power investing. One common mistake people make is to only invest in paper assets, like mutual funds or individual stocks. They do this because it's the easiest way to invest. You simply ask your broker to buy a fund or a stock for you. With a mutual fund, you don't even have to decide what stocks to choose. That's left to the fund manager. But as the author argues, this isn't the way to build wealth. You'll be waiting a long time for financial independence if you invest only in a mutual fund or a handful of stocks. Instead, you need to use several asset classes at the same time and become a power investor. Here's the key message. The best way to become rich is through power investing. To be a power investor, you need to make use of more than just paper assets. You need to include business or real estate as well. Rather than just holding a diversified stock portfolio or a mutual fund, the mega-rich integrate 2 or 3 of these different assets. Take the example of Bill Gates. He didn't become the richest person in the world by simply working for a computer company and investing in the stock market. Instead, he built a truly innovative and successful business in Microsoft, then took the software giant public. As Microsoft grew, so did the stock price, making Gates a multi-billionaire. This shows how powerful integrating business and paper assets can be. With only one of those, Gates wouldn't be as rich as he is today. A successful power investor builds synergy between the different types of assets. Synergy is when different things combine to create something more than the sum of their parts. So, keeping with Bill Gates, the success of his business drove its stock price up, which created a vast amount of wealth. Then, by reinvesting some of this value back into Microsoft, the business could expand and innovate, which drove up the stock price even further. Of course, you don't need to be Bill Gates to become rich. A small business combined with real estate and paper asset investments can get you there if you're dedicated enough. In fact, if you can become good at investing in at least two of these asset classes, you can generate synergy. Rather than waiting a lifetime for that mutual fund to make you rich, you'll be financially independent within a much shorter time frame. Number 3, rather than investing for capital gains, you should invest for cash flow. Imagine two types of farmer, a cattle rancher and a dairy farmer. A cattle rancher will raise a herd over a period of time, making sure the cows are fed and housed. Then, when they've reached the right age, she'll round them all up and send them off to the slaughterhouse. Her profit will come when her cows are sold for meat. That sum is the only money she'll make. On the other hand, a dairy farmer will raise his herd, also making sure that the cows are fed and housed. But rather than sending them off to the abattoir, he'll milk them, and he'll continue to profit from the milk as long as the cows produce it. The key message here is, rather than investing for capital gains, you should invest for cash flow. When looking for assets, you should follow the dairy farmer's example. So rather than killing your cash cow for a capital gain, you should milk it for as long as possible. Take real estate as an example. If you bought a property for $40,000, then renovated and sold it for $80,000, that extra $40,000 would be the only profit you'd make from it. But if you turned it into a rental property, you could make back your original investment and much, much more. Unfortunately, most people invest like the cattle rancher. This is because investing for capital gains is the easy way. It's far simpler to sell off your mutual fund or stocks than it is to find and maintain a good asset that produces cash flow. Most people also invest over a long time with the intention of harvesting it all when they need it. But, in the author's view, this is a recipe for bitter disappointment. Without any prospect of immediate returns, your money is exposed to the economic climate and to the cowboys of the stock market. You could lose it before you see a dime. Instead, you should look for assets that pay back their original cost within 5 years, through profits if they're a business, rents if they're real estate, or dividends if they're paper assets. Then they should continue making money for you long after they've paid for themselves. In other words, keep your cows around. Their milk is worth more than their meat. Number 4. Like a professional gambler, an investor needs to get their own money off the table as quickly as possible. When he was in his 20s, the author went to Las Vegas to gamble for fun. Starting with only $1 at the craps table, he soon hit a hot streak. It wasn't long before he'd won over $300. With the crowd cheering him on, he started placing bigger and bigger bets. Soon he was sitting on $3,000. A little voice in his head told him to pocket his winnings and carry on with a smaller amount. But he got greedy. On the next roll of the dice, he lost it all. Luckily, he gained a powerful lesson in the process. Here's the key message. Like a professional gambler, an investor needs to get their own money off the table as quickly as possible. Just like the author, many investors leave their money on the table for too long. They picture the stock price shooting up and start dreaming of a new car, a new home, or just being rich. But until they sell the investment, it's not their money. Sadly, the market often turns and they lose it all. The trick is to play with house money. So, in the author's case, he should have pocketed his casino money and continued playing with only his winnings. Or, better yet, he should have left the table altogether. In the same way, investors should get their original investment back as quickly as possible and then move on to new ones. For instance, if you purchased a rental property, you should get your initial investment back in rents and then move the profits into other real estate opportunities. Even better, you could use financial leverage to buy the property with borrowed money. By doing so, you'd be using even less of your own money at the start. Then, with the return, you could buy another rental property, and another, and another. You'd effectively be using other people's money to make money for yourself, which is the best way of accruing wealth. The trick is to take your own money off the table early and keep moving into new opportunities. By doing this, money achieves a kind of velocity, just like a snowball gets bigger as it rolls downhill. In the author's view, this is a lot safer than investing for the long term. Leaving your own money on the table just puts you at risk of losing it all in the next market crash. Number 5. You should learn to see the world from a banker's perspective. When the author was younger, his friend's rich dad took him to the bank. It was here that the author asked the loan officer a question. Would it be possible to borrow money from the bank to put into a mutual fund? As he asked the question, the loan officer smiled, then politely explained why he couldn't do that. It was just too risky. There was no way of guaranteeing that the bank would ever get their money back if they loaned it for such a volatile investment. And before they'd lend him any money for anything else, they'd need to see his financial statements. As they left the bank, the author realized that he'd just learned a valuable lesson about the way money works. The key message here is, you should learn to see the world from a banker's perspective. Bankers never hand money over to strangers without first seeing their financial statements and credit ratings. You can propose the most wonderful schemes in the world, but if your finances aren't in good shape, you won't get a loan. It doesn't matter about your qualifications either. The only thing they want to see is that you're smart with money. Bankers also require some kind of insurance on any money they lend. So, for example, if you want to take out a mortgage to buy a home, they'll usually ask for a down payment before they give you any money. You should approach potential investments the same way. In other words, you shouldn't just hand over your money to strangers without performing due diligence on them. Similarly, you should invest with the same demand for insurance on your investments too. But how exactly can you insure an investment? You do that by taking into account everything that could possibly affect your investment, like taxes, economic cycles, and lawsuits, and protect it against them. This varies from investment to investment, but the principle remains the same. By seeing the world from the banker's perspective, you'll also be in better shape to borrow from them. As we've already seen, you can use leverage to exponentially increase your investments. In fact, borrowing to invest is one of the main ways the ultra-rich build their wealth. Number 6. There are 4 key reasons why people don't succeed financially. In these lessons, we've learned the best way of achieving financial independence. To recap, you become a power investor by combining different asset classes, like real estate and a business, and creating a constant flow of income. At the same time, you keep your money moving rather than letting it sit for too long. But if it's that simple, why don't most people become financially independent? And how do you make sure the process works for you? Here's the key message. There are 4 key reasons why people don't succeed financially. The first reason people don't succeed financially is because of 2 words: I can't. Let's look at an example. Once, on his way to give a talk in Cape Town, the author was driving around in a cab with his host. As they cruised through the spectacular city, his host told him that he liked the author's ideas about investing in real estate, but that it wasn't possible in South Africa. The interest rates were just too high, but all around them were beautiful new buildings of world-class design. As politely as he could, the author turned to his host and said, "You might not be able to make money in real estate, but someone here is." The truth is, with hard work, it's always possible. This leads us to the second reason people don't succeed financially. Too many people think investing should be easy. If you only invest in mutual funds, all you need to do is pay every month. That's the easy way, but it's not very lucrative. If you want to achieve financial independence more quickly, you need to be an active investor. That means continually searching for and building new investments, looking for financing, and moving your money. The third reason people don't succeed financially is because it's easy to fall for traps that the rich set for the poor. Think back to the author's meeting at the bank. Although he couldn't get a loan for his mutual fund investment, he could have easily gotten a credit card, which would have made money for the wealthy bankers, but left him with bad debt. Or consider mutual fund managers. Even when the economy is crashing, they still take fees from clients whose investments aren't making any money. The fourth and final reason people don't succeed financially is because too many of them invest without ensuring that their money will still be there when they need it. They'll listen to their financial advisor promise great riches for them in the future without any guarantee of that happening. And while the average investor will take a gamble for a return tomorrow, a power investor wants a guarantee on returns today. So that's why many people fail to exit the rat race. And now that you know a better way, there's nothing stopping you from building a rich life. The key message in these lessons: to avoid poverty in old age, you need to start thinking about your financial situation now. Conclusion: if all you do is invest in mutual funds for the long term, your money will be stuck on the table, exposed to stock market sharks, and at risk of being wiped out in the next crash. But if you combine different asset classes to create synergy and keep your money moving from one investment to the next, you can generate a constant cash flow and build true wealth. Actionable advice: play more Monopoly. It might sound hard to believe, but the secret to becoming financially independent is contained in the game of Monopoly. You need to hold on to cash flow producing assets to win the game, just as you do in real life. So get a group of friends and have some fun. Your financial future will thank you. Okay, that's it for this summary. We hope you enjoyed it. If you like these finances lessons, share with others and subscribe for upcoming book summary. Thank you.